these days, apparently, every single game is so polarizing in a way that if you win a game, you're the best team on the planet. But if you lose a game, then it's immediately Ten Hag out or any manager out.
It's been an amazing weekend of football. I think one of the guys will agree. Two of them won't be so happy. And our three pundits are Asran, Rozain.
Hi everyone, it's been a fantastic weekend. Happy 15th birthday BFM and looking forward to more great weeks ahead.
And the sad ones include Keeshaanan and Sundaresan.
I mean, I was excited to come into the studio today, but not on the back of what happened yesterday.
Yes, and our fellow Manchester United fan, Sean Malhotra.
It's always great to be here, though sometimes I wish I could ghost away.
Don't take it so personally, fellas. Hey, by the way, we are being filmed today, and you can catch us on YouTube at some point. We're not being live streamed, but you can look us up and watch this back. So let's start immediately with. By the way, this show is going to be a lot of English Premier League and local football as well, and we're going to throw in a bit of other leagues along the way. Let's start with Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1. So, Keeshaanan, I'll start with you. I understand that you and Sean have hired a plane to fly over Old Trafford. So my question is, how much does that cost, and do you need a permit?
Yeah, I mean, these days, apparently, every single game is so polarizing in a way that if you win a game, you're the best team on the planet. But if you lose a game, then it's immediately Ten Hag out or any manager out. And that's the ridiculous part of watching football these days. But, I mean, let me be a bit sane here and just say what I feel. Realistically, when you look at United's performance yesterday, the result was frustrating. I think the outcome is something that everyone will be disappointed with. But if you look past the result, you look past the scoreline, there were a lot of positives in the United performance. And I think that's the thing that it's very important to keep that in mind and not, get dragged into this self-pity or get dragged into this sea of frustration, because ultimately United are a work in progress. And, when you've got 5 of your main defenders out injured, when you had to end the game with Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans as your centre-back partnership, I think that's already speaks to the volume of difficulty that United are dealing with at the moment in terms of injuries. So, a lot of positives despite the defeat, and with the return of hopefully players like Mason Mount, hopefully Lisandro Martinez isn't too badly injured, hopefully Lindelof is completely fine as well, we need Varane back, and with the integration of players like Amrabat after the transfer window, or rather after the international break, hopefully we're going to turn on a new leaf and improve.
God, speaks a football fan. But Sean, it's been a work in progress for a while. There've been some good performances by United, and I thought they were a bit unlucky in this. But when you look at the likes of Arsenal, who seem to have turned a corner, and Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur, is this project working?
I mean, it's only the start of his second season with United. You're looking, if you want to compare it to the likes of Arsenal, Arteta's in his, 4th season now, and he's getting it right.
And Postecoglou is in his 4th match.
The thing is, you're going to be judged by the trophies you win at the end, right? It's been 4 games. Just like you can say it's 4 games that Postecoglou has been getting Spurs to play nice football. United won a trophy last season, got into Champions League football. It's been 4 games this season.
Okay.
And the thing is, like Kish was saying, United have 5 defenders out. In that game, in 88 minutes of that game, United looked really good. And the fact that Rasmus Højlund came on, and I think any United fan could see the impact he brought the minute he was on. I had not seen a United striker give a defender so much problems in just literally 30 seconds of being on. He was all over Gabriel. But I'm taking nothing away from Arsenal. They were efficient. They took their chances while United didn't. And they sucker punched United. But I don't look at yesterday's game and go, oh no, it's doom and gloom, Erik ten Hag out. It's all over. There's still so much more to play for in the season. There's 34 more games to go.
Yeah, I don't know. But when I saw Johnny Evans, I was like...
Fun fact.
I was hitting the TV. It's like, I'm watching a match from the 2000s.
Yeah, I was 17 years old the last time Johnny Evans was a United player. It was 11 years ago.
Whoa. Okay. Actually, oh gosh, time is really running. So we're going to have to jump to the second match, which is... This is where you come in, Asran, the happy member of our squad. Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 0. I was looking forward to this match. I was expecting Villa to put on a better performance, but they were just swept aside by Liverpool. And I don't know, this Liverpool seemed to be back in some kind of form.
Yeah, it was fantastic to see. I think two things that went for Liverpool's favour yesterday. Obviously, the early goal settled down all the nerves. It was a fantastic goal by, I think so far, he's been the signing of the season for Liverpool, Dominic Szoboszlai. What a screamer that was. Yeah. And that sort of settled the nerves down. And after that, what surprised me was that Aston Villa lacked the pressure, because we know that Trent Alexander-Arnold is playing whenever Liverpool has the ball, he tucks into midfield and he sprays the crosses or the passes, the long balls in and out. Over the weekend somehow, Villa didn't seem to pressure him, and that allowed him to really play the quarterback role. And you could see him; he's the best at passing the ball, springing the passes, opening the play, and I think that was the key factor, because Trent Alexander-Arnold as a passer, arguably the best in England, and he showed that yesterday. So everything went well for Liverpool. I think Aston Villa somehow was underwhelming yesterday. So all smiles for Liverpool. It was a great weekend.
He will enjoy it while it lasts, eh? Kesh, Villa, I thought they were kind of strangely flat.
Yeah, it was a really weird one, because we had the same conversation after that Villa-Newcastle game, if we remember, where we talked about how this feels like a really off day, because we've seen Villa play much better, and the acquisitions that they've made over the summer definitely should mean that they would play even better this year. But I think where the mistake comes from Unai Emery, and sometimes managers just make these mistakes, and it happens, and the question mark is, at what point you rectify it? Because the mistake that he made against Newcastle, employing that high line of defense that just got completely destroyed by the pace of Alexander Isak, with Almiron running it through, with Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, and Anthony Gordon as well. So I think that high line of defense did not work for them against Newcastle, and they got completely ripped to shreds. And that pattern was replicated once again. I thought Liverpool just ran them ragged again because of that high line of defense as well. Obviously, there were some other issues, but I thought the main cause for concern was just how they set up shop on the day. You're at Anfield, and we know what Liverpool are like generally at Anfield, especially on the back of that morale-boosting victory over Newcastle. And to go there and set up the way they did, I thought that was a huge risk-taking maneuver. And I thought it just completely backfired. Obviously, there's no reason to hit the panic button with Aston Villa yet, because we've seen what they can do, and they've got players to be able to perform on the pitch. It's just a matter of realigning their strategies with every game.
Kish, do you ever hit the panic button?
It's 4 games into the season,
Four
Cam.
games.
I would be jabbing.
4 games.
It would break. I would hit it so hard. Okay, very quickly, Sean. Asran, you keep quiet. Mohamed Salah. I don't know if you saw the goal celebration, so-called celebration. What do you think the situation would be?
I honestly think he stays at Liverpool. I don't think, at the age of 31, the kind of money that's being mentioned, any one of us here would be fools to say no.
Oh, yeah.
Part of me thinks...
I would kill you.
Part of me thinks he wants to go. It's a way of life that he's used to, but I think there's a larger part of him that knows his time at Liverpool is not done yet. So he'll stay. In my opinion, he'll stay.
Probably they've reached a compromise. Maybe allow him to play another season or so, and then next year. Because I don't think his price will devalue or depreciate with the Saudi League. This year they're bidding 150 onwards, 150 million onwards. Next year they'll probably do the same. So
I think it will reduce, because contractually your number of years lowers. I think it reduces a little bit, but I think Salah is also very mindful of not ruining his Anfield legacy, because that matters a lot, and he's done quite a bit to build that already. I think he'll be staying. I agree with Asran, one more year, and I think he'll leave.
149 million next year. They reduce it by $1 million.
Yeah, that
Reverse Arsene Wenger.
that'll save $1 million for Saudi Arabia. That'll mean something.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Okay, we take a break. When we come back, more Premier League, specifically Spurs, here on Just for Kicks on BFM 89.9. And we're back with myself, Cam, and then Keish and Asran and Sean. And now we go to Burnley 2, Spurs 5. Who wants to take this one? Because I am genuinely, I am so honestly excited about the
You're
Ange.
an Ange fanboy,
You're
aren't you,
Ange's
Cam?
number one fan over there.
Oh, all right, then, Keish, you take this one and say only nice things.
No, but I'm going to take the light off Ange Postecoglou for this particular game because I just want to talk about Son Heung-min. I'm never going to get tired of talking about this man, and I think if there's a very weird thing in football where if Son Heung-min was European or South American and he was playing for Barcelona, Real Madrid, or one of the more established, perennial superpowers, I think he would be even more talked about, even more highly rated than he already is. It's ridiculous just how underrated he is in the grand context. I know that's a weird thing to say because everyone loves Son Heung-min, everyone knows what he can do, but I just feel we don't talk about him enough.
But he had been on a slump.
Had he though?
I mean, since he's come to England, I think last season's the only time you could say that he had a dip in form. I wouldn't say it's a slump, I would say a dip in
A
form.
minor dip, yeah, because he was still turning up with the goods.
He scored more goals than Cristiano Ronaldo has scored for Manchester United, playing for Spurs.
What, like, the whole of not Ronaldo second time round, like
Even though, including his second time round playing for United,
Son Heung-min.
Son Heung-min has scored more goals than Cristiano Ronaldo. Yet
Yeah.
that's not been talked about.
And the crazy thing about Son Heung-min in the context of this game especially is because we've primarily seen him as a wide forward, as a winger, as someone who runs the channels and works hard off the ball, and there was all this discussion of can Spurs cope without Harry Kane because he's the centerpiece, the guy who probably destroys teams playing as that pivot up front. Son Heung-min in this game just had 27 touches of the ball, and in 27 touches he had 3 shots. All 3 of them turned out to be goals.
the first one was just
Yeah,
amazing.
it was an absolute clinic on how to be a centre forward, and he's not even a traditional centre forward. And I think this sort of versatility in the absence of Harry Kane, I really hope people get reminded of just how good this guy is, because hands down the greatest Asian football player to have ever played the game.
Well, I've been watching on the net, and Spurs fans are very excited about Son, obviously, but also Asran about Maddison, a guy who has played four games for this team, but looks like he's been playing there forever.
But we saw a bit of Maddison. I think last year when Leicester were going through that crazy dip of form during the first half, probably James Maddison and Harvey Barnes were probably the only 2 players who had at least some semblance of respect from the fans, because you could see they tried their best. It's just somehow the team was doomed to be relegated. And I think James Maddison has carried on that form this year to Spurs. And I think we've said it before, the departure of Harry Kane has proven to be a blessing in disguise for Spurs. Now they're able to play differently. They're able to use the different channels. And with NG Ball, and we've seen how that worked in Celtic. By the way, Celtic won the Old Firm Derby over the weekend as well. So he's left a good team. Now it's managed by Brendan Rodgers, and they beat Rangers away at Ibrox. So Celtic is in good form on that side. But talking about back to NG Ball, I think that suits NG Postecoglou's way of working as well. So a lot of players are able to contribute, to score, and the big question is only the centre forward position, because we don't think Richarlison is the right person for that.
They brought in Brennan Johnson, which is a big fee for a player that I would say has not hit the heights that you would expect for such a fee. But I think that's the wonderful part about bringing in such a young player who's hungry, who wants to perform. Ange, I think, will be working with him really closely. He'll get him to play in a role that's, I think, perfect for the kind of player he is. He's quick. He likes to get into the channels. He can be a handful. And again, I'm going to highlight a thing about Richarlison where I just think he's not that guy. He's not meant to be there.
I'm going to throw something out here, okay?
Yeah.
Spurs could be the candidate for contender in the league. With Manchester City, up top.
I think it depends on their defense, really. I'm not so much worried about the attack. I know there's all this talk about them having not replaced Harry Kane with a more traditional centre forward. But if you looked at Ange Postecoglou's Celtic team, for example, his centre forward was not the primary goal scorer. Daisen Maeda, the Japanese guy, he was a pressing machine who did things off the ball to open up space for the unorthodox attackers like Kyogo Furuhashi or even Jota, or even Rio Hatate in midfield to just swarm the box and score the goals. And that's what he has at Spurs, right? He's got players like Son who can do work off the ball. Even if Richarlison doesn't score, obviously he'd prefer it if he scores. But even if he doesn't score, so as long as he opens up space for the likes of Son, Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, James Maddison, and if they all can chip in with goals, then they're fine. But the concern lies defensively, because as this game proved once again that they can be suspect, they can concede goals. The partnership
Early goals as well.
Yeah, the partnership of Romero and Mickey, it's a work in progress. So that's where the question marks primarily lie for me.
Okay. So meanwhile, though, Asran, Manchester City 5, Fulham 1. I think we'll just give like 30 seconds to talk about Man City. Haaland scored a hat-trick, blah, blah, blah.
Business as usual.
I think we spoke on the Friday show as well. Anybody who wanted to pick a fantasy football league captain should put triple captain on Erling Haaland. So that's what happened. He scored a hat-trick, assisted the other goal. Business as usual for Man City.
Although he hasn't really been scoring.
That's his 5th goal in 4 games.
Yeah, he has.
So, I
think maybe by his standards, but he has been scoring.
And I think he gets his fuel from you constantly saying that he doesn't score goals.
Probably, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got a part to play there. Thanks.
Yeah, the whole City squad, they sit around and listen to us on the little wireless.
Yeah.
Actually, Sean, I'm going to throw something at you then. Let's talk about Fulham.
Tough week for them.
Yeah, really tough week.
I mean, you would think one of their best players in João Palhinha was going to Bayern Munich, and it made sense. They got a good fee. He would have fit right into that Bayern midfield. It all looked like it was done, and I'm pretty sure he was going with the blessings of Fulham as well. They were getting a good fee for him. That fell apart. That would have thrown some of their plans off. Players within the team would have thought differently. Is he going to come back? Does he still want to play for us? Is he at the right mental state? There's a trickle effect in the team. I'm not saying, fully performance-wise they were going to put up a fight against City, but it does have a trickle effect. And the part that is, we talked about Haaland scoring a hat-trick, having an assist, but the part that's being talked about throughout the whole weekend is the obvious offside goal that happens that Nikhil Nake has.
Yeah.
And that's the part I don't like. It's like Haaland put on a performance. He put in an outstanding performance, but everyone's talking about that offside goal.
All right, well, a rule in our thing, we don't do VAR.
I agree. I think it gets exhausting if you're going to talk about refereeing.
Yeah, but it's just...
That was ridiculous. There was some officiating in the United game that was ridiculous, but it's fine.
It's humans. Keish, I want to ask you something, because when we're talking about Spurs just now, we didn't mention Burnley at all. And I was thinking of Burnley and Fulham together, because Fulham came up last year, and they were famous for playing very pretty football in the Championship. But when they came up, and I thought they were just going to get slaughtered. They succeeded, partly because they actually went kind of quite old school with Mitrovic up front. Burnley, to jump back, Burnley seems to be persisting with the prettiness and are doing so badly.
Yeah, there's a real discussion to be had about idealism versus pragmatism within the Burnley team as we speak. We had the same conversation last week, and honestly, before the season started, it was my main fear as well, because Vincent Kompany is still a relatively inexperienced manager. Belgian League, Championship, as high pressure environments as they are, but the Premier League is a different ballgame altogether. And my concern for Kompany was always, is he one of those guys that that's young, that's exuberant, that is too fixated on his idealism, that he's going to refuse to compromise when it comes to the Premier League? And to be fair, in the first few games we've seen from them so far, they have refused to compromise. Even when they concede goals, they don't shut up shop. They don't try to be more conservative. And I think that pressure is going to start piling on him. Right now, 4 games into the season with an international break, it buys him a bit of time. They did make one important signing as well. They brought in a new striker. Can't seem to recall his name now, but
Keish, you can't remember his name. He's probably like Belgian second division, which you know, don't you?
So there's a bit of time for him to work on the team. But enter match week 6, 7, 8. If the results don't come, it could really
But
start to get.
who is there? Sean Dyche is taken, and
Sam Allardyce is available.
he hasn't done Burnley, has he? It's the one. Okay, let's jump to another one. Asran, Sheffield United 2, Everton 2. Everton finally scored 2 goals and they didn't win the match. They didn't look very good though.
Yeah, and that was a absolutely ridiculous save that Pickford did there.
Yeah.
I think, look back at the end of the season, if they are to hang on to their teeth by staying in the Premier League by a point or so, they would look back at that particular performance. Because not only that, you have lost all your matches. You needed at least a point or a showing or a performance. Because if he had conceded that, that means they would have lost every single game. With the international break, it would have cost definitely a disaster for the whole morale of the team as well. Then there will be questions about the manager. Is he the right person for the job and whatnot? Whereas now, it's a point. Sheffield United, I would say, deserved their point. In fact, they were unlucky not to score that last-minute goal. So overall, I think at least some positives out of the game for Everton, because so far their season has been nothing but a disaster.
Yeah.
So they have to pick up. Again, they know how to score. At least they know how to find the net. Oof. They've scored 2 goals. And they've got Beto, who looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
He makes a
pretty
difference.
decent.
Yeah,
He makes a difference.
Giant of a
Yeah,
man.
Yeah,
My goodness.
when we look at teams that have flirted with relegation in the last couple of years, or even historically in the Premier League, teams that narrowly avoid relegation despite all signs pointing to the obvious relegation, the difference maker is usually a talisman that is, scoring the goals for them up front, even when they're not playing well. Leeds a couple of years ago had Rafinha, who was rescuing them in some of the biggest games towards the end of the season. Everton had Richarlison towards the tail end of the season, who scored some pretty big goals as well. I think Beto is that guy for Everton this year. Calvert-Lewin's injury record speaks for himself. They can't depend on him. But Beto, provided he stays fully fit with the kind of football that Sean Dyche likes and the physique that he possesses, he is going to be that guy.
Well, Kish is not wanting to press the panic button for Everton, but Sean, we've mentioned a bunch of clubs that flirting with disaster at the bottom. Is Everton one of those?
I mean, I stick by my guns from match day 1, where I said there were 3 teams that I thought were a sure thing to go down even before the ball was kicked, and that was Luton Town, Sheffield United. I'm saying Sheffield United this time because Des reminded me, and Everton Football Club, because these are the 3 teams that have not invested well in the team. Yeah, you could say Beto was a good investment, but it's one investment in that team. You're looking at 2 teams that played against each other that were just poor in finishing, in terms of defending, and that was Sheffield United and Everton, yet both of them walked away with a point. We're talking about how big a point it was for Everton, but that's also a really big point for Sheffield United to be playing against them and getting a point. To me, Everton are going to go down at the end of the season, and yes, maybe there may be moments that could save them by a point or maybe a goal difference, but I just don't see it. You're going to have to do it over a long period of the season. I just can't see it happening. They can't be third time lucky.
Yeah, and the financial, it would be such a disaster for them. Anyway, we move on and we look at the one club that's probably worse than those ones we've mentioned, Chelsea, here on Just for Kicks on BFM 89.9. And we're back with myself, Cam Ruslan, and I was taken by surprise there, so I've forgotten everyone's names. Asran Rozain, Keeshaanan Sundaresan, and Sean Malhotra. Because I was taken by surprise because I was just looking at this scoreline. Chelsea 0, Nottingham Forest 1. Bob Holmes must be the happiest man around. That's just the most incredible scoreline. Asran, how do we make sense of this?
Exactly. We were talking about how Nottingham Forest might be deflated a bit after unluckily not getting the point at Old Trafford the previous week. And then with their performance in the FL Cup, we mentioned as well at how Chelsea looked a bit to normality with Raheem Sterling playing well. But yet, unfortunately, all went 1 step forward, 3 steps back for them because they were...
But were they bad? Were Chelsea were bad?
I don't think that... Even though they had the bulk of possession, there weren't many clear-cut chances. I think it was very similar to how... Because I personally believe they have been underwhelming up until that previous game against Luton. But again, as Sean would adhere to it, Luton is probably going to be the worst team ever in the history of the Premier League. So everything was horrible for Chelsea, unfortunately. Again, they've looked like they've just selected random players who don't know each other. There's no semblance of a team.
That is the case though. They've signed a completely new team. But the part that I don't understand is you're playing at home against Forest, yet you're starting players out of position. Ben Chilwell was playing at left wing. Levi Colwill was playing at left back. You have Mudryk on the bench. You have Madueke on the bench. You're not starting your attacking players. There were only 2 attacking players on that field, and that was Nicholas Jackson and Raheem Sterling, who, in my opinion, were the possible best 2 players Chelsea had on the day. But take nothing away from Forest. Anthony Elanga, what a performance. Not only for the goal, but he was running that Chelsea defence ragged. And it was, for me, a joy to watch, because a player that didn't get, the credit that he deserved at United to go to Forest to be playing the way he did, it was a joy to watch. And the goal he took was Taiwo Awoni's pass. That was the pass of the weekend for me. That was a beautiful pass.
Through the legs of Thiago Silva.
What a pass. Yeah. And I don't know. To me, I don't think Poch knows exactly what his best team is yet. He doesn't know what his best formation is yet. There are players that, haven't even played for the team yet. Caicedo hasn't looked like he's gelled in with that team exactly yet. We talked about him so well last season, but in 2 games, he's made 2 mistakes now. So does that mean Moises Caicedo is a bad player? No, I just don't think,
Is the price tag hanging on him?
But again, I'm urging some caution here, because it's 4 games into the season.
No, go for it.
No, we've got to be a bit more realistic, because it's a team that went through wholesale changes. Right? Whether we agree with the wholesale change or not, it's a separate discussion altogether. But the reality is, when you've got wholesale changes like that, it takes time. Where I will point the fingers at Chelsea was their failure to solve the goal-scoring problems up front, because their recruits have all primarily been focused on the flanks, in midfield, in defence, when one of their biggest pain points from last year, or even in the last couple of seasons, was the inavailability of consistent goal scorers up front. Nicholas Jackson, great, right? But he was not the most crazy prolific striker that was in La Liga last year. Raheem Sterling has looked really promising this season, and I'm hopeful that he will turn up with the goods. But I was hoping that they would go out there and bring in someone else who can guarantee them goals. Because against Forest, they had 21 shots, just 2 of them were on target.
Wow. And
that's a fundamental problem that you need to solve. So whilst I do think that the squad genuinely needs time, while players like Caicedo, Lavia, even Cole Palmer for that matter, will all take a bit of time to properly bed into this Chelsea team. But even once you've got the midfield and defence sorted out, question marks are still over who is going to turn up with the goods on a consistent basis up front.
Yeah, Sterling has been called up for the England
No, he
was not.
And that's the big controversy as well.
And I do hope that they are patient with Pochettino, because what happened to Potter last year, I hope they've learned from that.
Chelsea.
Can I ask this question? Just a show of hands with it. Is Pochettino actually any good?
Oh, of
I
course,
think
yeah.
so,
I think he's good.
Yeah?
Decent.
Yeah, he's decent.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So no panic button on that one. I don't.
No panic button on anyone, Cam.
Okay, all right.
I think the only one that would be having
Luton,
a panic button
yeah.
right now is Luton.
Well, Sean, I want to bring you in, Sean. Luton Town 1, West Ham 2. Luton Town, your favourite team. And you are a favourite with the fans of Luton Town.
Remind myself never to visit Luton in the UK.
Your picture is probably on the station platform. West Ham, though. West Ham. David Moyes. Ex-Manchester United. You should have stuck with him.
Wow.
I know. Come on. He has bought well. Ward-Prowse is coming up with the goods. They are playing well, I think, and they're getting results. I know it's Luton Town.
I mean, like you said, right? They sold well and they bought well. They got a massive fee for Declan Rice, and they invested it in 3 really good players. James Ward-Prowse, Premier League proven. He's the perfect footballer to unlock every other footballer in that West Ham team. Why? Long balls, set pieces. Perfect for every other player in that West Ham team. But let's not take away James Ward-Prowse is a great footballer. And then you have Mohamed Kudus, who didn't even start the game, who hasn't even played yet. And West Ham just got it right, because the movements that they're making, the things that they're doing, they're overpowering teams. It's not a matter of playing pretty football. I think that's the one thing that David Moyes has stuck true since his Everton days up to now. they don't play pretty football. They play efficient football.
No, it's quite attractive too. I mean,
I wouldn't say it's not Pep style of football.
No,
it's
but
not
like when
Klopp style of
Antonio's
football.
kind of like going down, it's exciting.
It's pure brute strength and
Yeah.
then one long ball that gets to him. But if I want to really focus and be nitpicky, right, Luton Town are not the greatest, scale of how well a team should be doing, because the only thing that I so far have been impressed by Luton Town is their stadium, because this is the first time they played at home, and very unorthodox stadium to be in the middle of a housing area, but they've not invested well in that team. In fact, they've not invested pretty much at all. I think they got 2 youngsters from United.
yeah, which is sensible.
Yeah. Sensible, but
Yeah.
this can't sustain you throughout the league. I'm so fearful for Luton, not in a way to make fun of them, but there is a genuine fear that this team could end with the lowest points tally in Premier League
But I think
history.
they're happy to be there.
Yeah,
They're happy to be there.
Yeah. Let's move on though to and apologies to the fans of Brentford and who else? Crystal Palace and Wolves, and I've missed one. Brighton 3, Asran. Brighton 3, Newcastle United 1.
Yeah.
I think Brighton are very good, but I was very surprised by this result, and I was very surprised by Newcastle United.
And Brighton continue to surprise. Again, I really do believe that they're going to end up above Chelsea. I know it's early days, but how they have set up, the players that they have bought. I mean, Evan Ferguson at what? He's 18?
Yeah.
I mean,
Cool.
at 18 years old, I didn't score a hat trick in the Premier League for sure. So,
I don't think there's any doubt in
I
that.
mean, not many people do that. So, man, he's an amazing prospect, and the way they play, they're so exciting to watch, and they've got another signing. I mean, they've got great signings, really fit in, and we know De Zerbi is able to bring out the best of his players playing his style of football. So for me, again, unfortunately for Newcastle, because it's been a tough run for Newcastle. Getting the draw, I mean, to be drawn against Manchester City and Liverpool, and to lose at home to Liverpool by the manner that they did, I'm sure it somehow deflated them. They needed a performance against Brighton, but Brighton turned up to be the better team during that day. So again, I'm with Keish. No reason for panic, because Newcastle is an excellent team, excellent squad that I see. I see them probably
Yeah, but
in the
they
next
were not
games.
excellent. I mean,
This game,
their lack of excellence was very troubling.
Yeah,
it's just a one-off. if you ask
Really?
me.
I think there's a bit of a problem in midfield. One of the things about Newcastle last year was they went into most games as the underdog, right? Like, because they were not in the Champions League, they were still recovering, and so teams were still not crazily cautious against them. So they had the liberty to play whoever they want in midfield and get away with it. But this year, every single team in the Premier League is starting to take them seriously and are starting to put pressure on that midfield very seriously. And that midfield is just far too monotonous for my liking. Even the new additions, Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Joel Linton, I feel they all play on the same frequency. There's no one else to sort of absorb the pressure, a different profile to give them a bit more comfort in the middle of the park, because that's what they seem to lack against teams that really, pile on the pressure. Brighton really piled on the pressure on them, and they just collapsed in the middle of the park. And that was the same case against Man City as well. So that's the one thing that they're going to slightly regret, not adding on more of a profile, though I suspect in the coming weeks, we're going to see more rotation. I think we're going to see Sean Longstaff be a lot more involved, Joe Willock be a lot more involved, maybe even Jacob Murphy as well be a lot more involved.
Yeah, but those names are not. Anyway, but Sean, Brighton. How high can Brighton go?
Sky's the limit, honestly, because again, that team is so raw. There are so many players in that team where I honestly think it's much like Klopp's Liverpool, where a lot of those players probably wouldn't perform really well at other teams, but because there's a system in place that fits those players' profiles, they perform really well. Evan Ferguson, watching him over the weekend, he reminded me of two players at a certain stage of their careers. Wayne Rooney at 18, right? That dogged mentality, that bulldog mentality, and a Harry Kane number 9 at his current stage. The maturity he has in position and out of possession of the ball is outstanding. He doesn't give up on anything. And remind you, this is an 18-year-old who's playing like this. Sky's limit for him. Imagine that Brighton team. And I remember a season ago, certain pundits were saying Roberto De Zerbi, he doesn't stay long at clubs. He doesn't really leave a mark. The man has left a huge mark already. We're talking about panic stations after 4 games. No one's really talking about how well Brighton are doing. And the thing is...
Except for us.
Yeah, except for us, right? And
Yeah.
they've checked off Newcastle, one of the best performing teams of last season, and they did it with ease.
There is one panic button though, and I think it's within the Brighton board. Because if I'm in that Brighton board,
Yeah.
I'm worried about who comes next. Because how do you even get anyone better than De Zerbi to come to your club at this point?
I'm sure they've got it worked out already.
Judging by their pattern before this, I'm
Yeah.
inclined to think so as well. But still, I'll be really, really
Because
worried.
we're going to talk Italian football in a moment, but I mean, would you have plucked that name out, De Zerbi?
To be fair, De
Back then?
Zerbi it was a matter of convenience because of the political situation in Ukraine made his job at Shakhtar really, really precarious. And I think the availability plus the opportunity, it was the perfect moment, and they got him. I don't think Brighton would have been able to pull this Zerbi out of Shakhtar otherwise.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some European football and Malaysian football here on Just for Kicks on BFM 89.9. And we're back with myself, Cam, and Keish, and Asran, and Sean. And now I want to do a quick trip around Europe to just see how the other leagues are going. And so let's start with Spain. Give us a sense of some of the stories that are happening, Asran.
Okay, so in Spain, Real Madrid has won their 4 matches in a row, even though they've got massive injury concerns. And obviously the signing of the summer throughout Europe has been performing. Jude Bellingham, he scored so many winners. In fact, over the weekend he scored another winner on the 94th minute, I think that was. So what a signing he's been for Real Madrid, especially when they need him, with Vini out, with the defenders out, Rudiger's out. So exciting times for Real Madrid. And Barcelona is keeping sort of the challenge as well. I think Barcelona's won 1-3 and drew 1. So I think that's they're keeping Real Madrid in check. So all to play for in Real Madrid as we expected.
But it's crazy to think that Real Madrid midfield, right? Let's just name names. You've got Modric and Kroos, the 2 old heads who are the most experienced ones. Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Jude Bellingham. That's an outstanding... Valverde. That's a stacked midfield for at least 10 years, right? Don't count Modric and Kroos, but the other midfielders, that's 10 years. And Jude Bellingham is the first Real Madrid player since Cristiano Ronaldo, if we're using stats, to score in his first 4 games. And that's Jude Bellingham in midfield. He's only 19.
I think it's because of that midfield they're able to cope with the loss of their strikers and defenders. Because these players are really modern footballers. They can defend, they can attack. They're ultra versatile, all these players that you've mentioned just now.
Can I ask then, Keish, I'm a fan of England. I watch England, the national team, and I watch the Premier League. So it's strange for me that I've really not seen Jude Bellingham much.
Yeah, because...
But is he really that good?
Oh, he's sensational, Cam. Let's put it this way, right? If you go to mainland Europe, there is always this, feeling of disdain that they have towards England and English football. And because, Spanish football fans look at English football as, they acknowledge that the Premier League is the biggest league, but English football is archaic. It doesn't have enough thinkers. It doesn't have enough, fluidity, flair. It's boring. It's dry. It's Sean Dyche and David Moyes. That's what everyone thinks about English football,
and running,
right?
Kicking the ball and running.
Exactly.
That's about it.
Now, picture Santiago Bernabeu, the cathedral of arguably the biggest club in world football, Real Madrid, right? A club that's so notorious for pressure that even Cristiano Ronaldo got booed on days when he did not score, despite him being their record goal scorer. That's how intimidating of an environment Real Madrid is. Now, picture an entirely packed Santiago Bernabeu singing Hey Jude. That's a sight that you wouldn't normally get, and I don't think that's a sight that anyone would have expected to have seen in the last few years. And that's how good Jude Bellingham is, because Real Madrid fans who are so used to seeing incredible talents week in, week out, even they are so starstruck by just how good.
But is he good, like the ball at his feet, like Zidane, or is he spreading the ball beautifully?
He's an all-action midfielder, and it's very difficult to box him into a position the same way you wouldn't box Zidane. What was Zidane? Was he a number 10? Was he a number 8? Nobody knows, because he played wherever he wanted to play, and he won games. And that's exactly what Jude Bellingham is. He's an all-action efficient midfielder, and it's absolutely astonishing.
And don't
Okay.
forget, it's only 20. So
He's crazy.
Yeah.
we've yet to see the best of him.
So he has been called up to Southgate. So.
Yeah, he has.
It would
to.
be it would be mental if he wasn't.
Yeah,
called
I
up.
think the fans would take to the streets if he wasn't called up. Yeah.
Sean, let's make a trip to Italy. What's happening there that we should know about?
I mean, Napoli's carrying on like nothing ever changed. Like they're still, after losing their manager, I was thinking to myself that things may get a little bit more difficult for Napoli, but Osimhen is still scoring goals for fun. There are people talking about, I can never pronounce his name as much as I want to.
Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, I can never pronounce his name.
Just call it Kvaradona.
Kvaradona. He's only had 2 assists or something like that. I'm like, it's not about him. It's about how that whole team performs, and they're still performing. I think they've won 4 out of their 3 games or 4 out of 4 games. Milan have been performing. You know, I think they got a huge win over the weekend as well. Giroud scoring. Leao. There's so many question marks about Rafael Leao, which I don't understand because he's still so young and he's putting in 7 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s. That boy's ceiling is so high and it's showing again.
That was a great goal he scored
Yeah.
against Roma.
Great
and
goal.
Milan played with 10 men like for half an hour, and they managed to defend well. It was obviously Roma scored in injury time to make life a bit interesting for the last 3 minutes, but 2-1. Napoli, I think they're playing well, but that was what a good game against Lazio at home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they
Yeah,
lost.
can I ask, do you guys do anything other than watch football? I just want to you watched every
What
match.
else would you do, Cam?
Okay. Can I ask, we got internationals coming up. Spalletti, the manager of Napoli, has gone over to the Italian team. Italy in the international arena, I mean, they won the Euros, but they faltered and they're faltering now, or spluttering now. I mean, they've only played, 2 matches, qualifiers so far. What's the chances of Italy not qualifying again?
Again, when it comes to Italy, it's how obviously during the Euros, I think nobody sort of thought they were the best team during the championships, but yet they had a sense of unity. Somehow, that brought the team through the finish line. Unfortunately, after that, they haven't been able to find that. Obviously, there's a bit of a divide between the southern players and the northern players who are different, even though they're Italian, right?
Yeah.
By nature, they're different. That unity within the team hasn't been seen yet. Spalletti hasn't been able to uncog or unleash that unity yet. But I think once they get together, they've got a decent team. And for me, the Serie A is slowly evolving and improving back to what it was when they had the Seven Sisters, as they call it before. I think it's slowly turning into another good league. So give him time. Spalletti, he's a winner, so give him time, and I think Italy would probably, again, the question is, when will they be able to gel as a team?
Okay. Well, I want to leave us some time to talk about Malaysian football. But before we do that, I want to go to Germany. And Sean, that man Harry Kane, he's settling in quite nicely in Bayern Munich.
I mean, is it any surprise? Honestly, we all have been saying it for years. It was funny making the joke that they didn't win their, the cup in the beginning, their Super Cup or their version of the Charity Shield, that they didn't win it. But Harry Kane guarantees you goals. And if he doesn't score, you've still got Sané, Gnabry, and that young German striker. Not Musiala. Musiala's another one, but that young German striker,
Matthias Tell, yeah.
Another one who looks like a really exciting prospect. And they finally beat Mönchengladbach, who's been like their bogey team for the last 6 games. I have never understood it, but they finally did it. And Harry Kane adds that missing piece that they've been missing when Robert Lewandowski went to Barcelona, right? Just to segue a bit, the fact that they've been drawn into a group with Manchester United, a lot of people were expecting me to be terrified, but I'm actually extremely excited because Bayern Munich's one of the clubs that I respect big time. Harry Kane coming to play against United, and he will perform against United, being very, very blunt here. It's a match made in heaven. If there was any team that it wasn't Manchester United, Bayern Munich was that team. It fits his profile. He doesn't have to drop as deep as he would have with Spurs because he's got enough players around him that can provide for him. Literally, look at the goals he scored for Bayern Munich so far. It's him in the box. It's perfect. That's exactly what he needs at his age now, right?
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see him not dropping back. I'm not saying not having to.
But he's still creating as well in the Bayern team, which is nice to see.
Keish, these leagues that we've mentioned, not the English Premier League, of these leagues, the European leagues, which one would you say is the most exciting?
It depends on what you look for. For me personally, what excites me the most about watching football these days especially is spotting young talents. And there are two leagues in Europe that are not hesitant when it comes to giving young players opportunities to play in the starting 11 week in, week out. And that's Ligue 1 in France as well as the Bundesliga. These are the two leagues that really, you see some of the world's best young kids just getting thrown onto the pitch by every single team. Even relegation candidates would throw on a young player into the starting 11, and that's absolutely brilliant. And it's for the same reason, right? You look at Bundesliga, I mean, obviously Dortmund are struggling, but Bayer Leverkusen's story, and it's the title charge, or rather the push on Bayern Munich's title, is being led by a young Nigerian striker, Victor Boniface, who was just playing in Belgium a couple of months ago. And, so it's stories like that that you will get out of Bundesliga, and especially in League. Some of the best young midfielders in the world are all playing in League A as we speak.
Asran, which would you choose?
Yeah, because I think in those leagues, it's a clear winner that at the end of the day, Bayern and PSG is going to win. So there's less pressure, I suppose, for the rest of the teams, but to compete.
I think it's a cultural thing.
Okay.
Even if there's competition, even when there is a genuine chance to win title, I think culturally, over the years, they've always just given young players an opportunity.
For me, in terms of atmosphere, it has to be the Bundesliga, but in terms of challenge, the league race itself, I would probably say Serie A now. You can't really predict who's going to win. Is it going to be Napoli, Inter, Milan? Lazio did a thing against Napoli over the weekend, so Lazio maybe, and Jose Mourinho's Roma. So there's 5 teams. And did I mention Juventus? So there's 6 teams essentially that can win. So for the competitiveness of the league, I would say the Serie A.
Sean, I know you're a big fan of the Argentine.
Currently, for me, it's Dutch football, and it's not because my team I support's coach is Dutch, but because I enjoy Dutch football, because like the same thing, you never know who's going to win the league. Everyone assumes Ajax is always going to win the league. Last season they got blown apart, destroyed,
and they are struggling this season.
Yeah, they're struggling this season. You've got PSV who look really good. You've got Feyenoord who look really good. Feyenoord got a tough group in the Champions League, but it's exciting because there are a lot of players, just like Kish was saying, where they promote youngsters, they get put in the first team straight away and are expected to perform, but with no pressure. So same thing with the Dutch league.
Oh my gosh, I've only given you 1 minute, Kish, to talk about Malaysian football. What's happening?
I mean, there's 2 upcoming Malaysian international games. We're playing Syria and China. The first game is on the 6th, which is, I think, Wednesday. Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it is.
Wednesday. And the second game is on the 9th, 3 days later. So these are big ones because over the last few months, Malaysia national team have generally played smaller ranked teams. But with the Asian Cup coming up in January, they really need platforms to test themselves against most superior opposition. So it's not so much about winning. Obviously, that'll be on the minds, but it's also about coping, playing away from home against more superior oppositions and finding the best sort of recipe on the pitch. I think there are a few players that Kim Pan-gon would probably look at as guaranteed starters already, but there are some other key positions that he would really need to sort out, and I think this one really offers him that opportunity.
Yeah. And after that is the Pesta Bola Merdeka, also superior teams to it. So great, it's a great time for the Malaysian national team.
And it's going to be a great time for the local clubs, because I managed to find a BFM group, including producer Daryl there, and we're all going to go and watch KL City with you, Asran. When you give the sign, we're going to go.
Hopefully in the semi-finals of the Malaysia Cup when we meet Selangor, probably. That's a good first experience.
Okay, so well, that brings us to the end of this week's show. It's been packed, and I'd like to thank Keeshaanan and Sundaresan.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the week.
And Asran Rozain.
It's been a great weekend. Wishing you guys a great week ahead.
And Sean Malhotra.
I'm going to have a great weekend not having to see United play.
Pressure's off. And our producer, Daryl, thank you. And remember, you can watch this on YouTube when it comes out at some point in the near future. And happy 15th birthday. And I think it's about 13th birthday to the football show and Ross Yusuf. See you next time here on Just for Kicks, BFM 89.9.